Edge. Pete Najarian and I are going to cover a bunch of topics for you, including PDD, a stock that we tagged for unusual activity that then jumped or exploded $15 higher. Episode 286, Pete.
We're getting after it. We got Jared at the helm, and we are ready to rock and roll, John. Let's get after it right now. Macro Minute, baby.
Let's do it. Macro Minute, I'm going to say I've seen a lot of headlines lately, Pete, about November rally running on fumes. I think they're kind of getting what we were saying about whistling past the graveyard, Pete.
That's a possibility. I'm going to tell you that Governor Waller, one of the Fed govs, is talking about how they are right on target and they are going right after that inflation target of 2%. Sounds like it's pretty confident. I don't know if you want to be that confident. I think you maybe want to back off a little bit and let's see how this actually plays out. But either way, John, I think that is changing things a little bit and people are listening right now.
Yeah, certainly are. Let's dive into fantastic futures, Pete.
Let's do it.
Fantastic future.
Sounds like we need to let that guy out of the box more often. Boy, I have a hard time with this one, Pete. I mean, gold is up another $30. I think, it's $2,042 to the ounce. And we've still got the OPEC Plus pushing out their meeting till the 30th. But now we've got the big bounce back for energy.
How about the yo-yo we're seeing in crude oil right now, John? I mean, literally, we started the day at the very beginning of the day or last night, 75.60. We went all the way down to 74.60, dropped a buck, and then bang, $2 higher, back up to 76.40. Really interesting to see the way crude is trading right now. I still think there might be a bounce. We've seen a little bit more energy being bought of late. We'll see if that plays out, but certainly crude is looking back up towards that $80 level. Maybe we get there, maybe we don't, but right now, over 76, pretty strong.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what else is strong today, Pete? PDD. PDD is a big e-commerce platform that helps push something that those of you who are on Instagram or TikTok a lot see all the time, Temu. This is like, a retailer that makes things incredibly cheaply in China, puts them online, and PDD is really responsible for getting it out there, Pete. And that stock exploded to the upside today, beating revenue expectations, jumping up big. They basically pulled in about 68 billion yuan versus 54 billion yuan was expected. And you know what? We had unusual option activity throughout the day, and those bets have paid off.
Paid off in a big way, John. I mean, a big way. This stock absolutely flew to the upside. You talked about 15, 18%, whatever the number, 52-week highs for sure, pushing on that 140 level. I mean, this is a stock absolutely ripping to the upside. And why is that? Well, when you beat on your revenues and you put up 9.6 billion, and you were just talking about it in the yuan, I'm going to put it back into dollars, but up 94% year over year on revenue. That's a big number. I don't know how often we see anything like that. You look at their sheets in terms of the balance sheets, they are pristine. They've got money, they've got the cash, and they're killing it right now. I would not want to be a person out there trying to short this name, that's for sure. I think this thing's got a little bit more gas in the tank.
Yeah, and it's a frequent flyer on our unusual activity, folks. Yeah. Several times this year we've had that one. And you want to go check it out, go to marketrebellion.com/bang. And you can check out some of the offers that we still have even after Cyber Monday. All right, let's talk about Argenx, Pete, because we talk all the time about clinical stage biotechs and how important it is to get through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and still have enough money left that you can bring the product to market. Well, these guys, they were doing a preliminary study and it didn't meet various endpoints. And for that reason, it's down 9%, and it's a $400 stock. So that's a pretty big drop.
It's a big drop. It's ugly. The stock's been as high as 550. Last I looked, John, it was closer to 450. It's got about $50. It's taken off today. It's definitely getting hammered to the downside. Here's the biggest problem I see. When you go into these trials and you go up against the placebo and you can't beat the placebo, that could be a problem for sure. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. And that's why I think this is such a dramatic move to the downside. When you look at this company, they've got plenty of different other drugs and so forth, treatments within that pipeline. The problem is most of them are fairly early stage. So interesting to watch. They've got the balance sheet to be able to hang on, but this thing's definitely getting pumped and getting hit hard today. I wouldn't want to buy this thing right now. I think I'd be very, very patient before I dip my toe into this water.
I think that's smart. There's no need to rush into this one, not yet. They may have to reformulate something. They may even have to scrap it. So be careful, folks. Let's talk about Zscaler, Pete, because in the pre-market, it was $10 lower than where it is right now. It's a $190 stock, but it was 182 this morning. Now it's trading 192. The issue here really was that even though they raised guidance, Pete, they made a lot of management changes, and for an immediate management change like they did, that's not the same as saying, well, 3 months from now, we're going to do this. So people got nervous.
They got nervous. They talked about the one thing also was the billings forecast wasn't quite what they were looking for, but all the other numbers, John, pretty outstanding actually. So I think that's why the stock has bounced the way it was. You talked about it. It was down to 182. It's gotten back up to 192. It's actually gone from negative and back into positive territory. It's interesting. It's then eased back just a little bit again, but it's right near those 52-week highs of 195. So this is a stock that I think people, I think they're a little bit confused. I think they're starting to find their way now. And I think the reality is the numbers they put up were fantastic. Billings forecast maybe a little bit soft, but you can look past that when you look at what they did this past quarter. And this is one where I think, I think they actually could challenge over the next couple of days, maybe a week or so, that 52-week high level.
Yeah, well, I think there's more confidence, obviously, now after things settled down about those management changes, and that's why it's $10 higher than the lows of the day. Let's talk about Micron. You used to be the specialist in Micron. The stock is sliding, but it has bounced as well. It was down 5%. Now it's only down about 2.5%, Pete. They updated Q1 sales forecasts, citing improved supply pricing, meaning, I guess, that they've got some supply demand in their favor, not just oversupply, but demand has caught up to supply. And I think that's why we're seeing a decent bounce out of this one today, Pete.
I think that's exactly right, John. I think that's why we're bouncing because, the forecast was $1.14. They actually slid that down to $1, and that oftentimes does give people, we hear people talk, we talk about this all the time, right? I mean, when you start to look at the forecast, when you look at the guidance, if that's not there, that can be a problem. It was a problem early on, but I think people are looking past that to some degree. Stock is still in negative territory, as you said, still down about 2.5%. But basically, when you look at this company, you look at what they were able to put up, what their numbers really look like, and you look at what the PE levels are and everything else for this company. You know what? There's a lot of reasons why maybe people overreacted early, and that's why I think we've cut that in half. Shoot, we might finish the day actually closer to flat.
Yeah, well, for all the Microsoft longs, let's hope so.
How about the NFL? How about the firing of coaches in the NFL? And when I say coaches, I don't mean just head coaches, John. I'm talking about coordinators across the board, every team practically in the NFL, other than the top, the teams that are doing really well, still very much in the hunt. They're doing fine. But there's plenty of them out there where they've gotten rid of offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators. You've got special teams coaches stepping in to be the head coaches in certain circumstances. I'll tell you what, the most recent one with Frank Reich down there in Carolina, is this really his fault, John? Or is Tepper being a little bit of a kind of a pain in the butt as far as an owner? Because Reich did not want to draft Bryce Young. And yet Tepper said, let's go get him. We want him. He's only 5'10". He's 185 pounds, 190, whatever he is, John. He's small, he's frail, and he's not really NFL ready. Now, it doesn't mean he couldn't be someday, But I think in the NFL, you need some time when you're that small and everything else, and you're almost overwhelmed. Well, he's overwhelmed. Now Reich's not overwhelmed. He's fired. He's gone. McDaniels is gone. So I guess the question I have for you, John, real quick would be, who do we think is next? Is it Ron Rivera? Is it Staley out there in LA? Is it Bill Belichick, who, if you really do look at Bill Belichick's record, guys, and you go all the way back, because I'm old enough to do it, go back to Cleveland, and you go to a couple other stops, you get to New England. I wonder why he started winning so well. I'm trying to think. Is there any? Well, he might have had the GOAT. He might have had Tom Brady. And when he didn't have Tom Brady, he stunk. When he did have Tom Brady, he was great. Right now, they don't have Tom Brady, and they stink. Is Bill Belichick going to be gone, John, at the end of the year?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Pete, that now in the past, he'd always found the tweeners, like a linebacker that he could convert, or something like that. But he has not had to draft a quarterback high. And this guy, Mac, just does not look like the quarterback that's going to lead them going forward. So they're either going to have to trade or draft somebody this year because it doesn't look like they've got a leader on offense right now. It looks like sort of like the Jets with Zach. You got to find somebody else. Lastly, Pete, I'll just say quickly, I ran into Jim Cramer, your friend and mine, outside the New York Stock Exchange yesterday. Check out the Twitter post. Maybe I'll put it up here tomorrow. But I told him, he said, what do you think? What do you think our chances are? He was yelling at me as he came down the block, Pete. What do you think our chances are, John? What do you think? And I was just looking, once he got next to me, I said, well, I like you guys against the Ravens. Pete and I just got finished talking about it. Now, I still think San Francisco is a formidable opponent there, more so than what the AFC is going to put up against the Ravens, quite frankly, Pete. So, but yeah, Jim Cramer was delighted to hear that. He was flying his Eagles hat. Fly, Eagles, fly!
You gotta love Jim. Jim, you know what? Some people were very, very rude to you and I about the picture that you two had that I put up on Twitter. And I'm sitting there going, you can think whatever you want, but Jim's a good guy. He's a good guy, and he's always been kind to us. So that's where I'll leave that there. But I will tell you, you're right. I think the 49ers are definitely one of those teams that people definitely should be afraid of. Philadelphia should be one of them. Let's not forget, last year, the Niners were going against Philadelphia, and what happened? They lost Brock Purdy. They lost quarterbacks, right? And they had nobody left. I mean, that's why I still think that they still need to change that rule about who you can dress. You got to have 3 quarterbacks on the roster at all times. End of story. That's the way it should be. All right, John, next, college football. It is a great time in college football. Everybody's fighting over this, that, and the other. We've got a lot of different championship games coming up this weekend that'll really sort through things. Alabama, Georgia, all of that. I think it's going to be great. Washington, Oregon. How great is that game going to be? All that being said, go ahead, John.
No, I agree. I said, yeah, you're right. That's going to be a huge game.
Huge game, big one, and it literally could change a lot of how things look in the order right now. And by the way, Florida State still has to play Louisville. Anyway, all that being said, how about this? I was taking a look at the transfer portal. Yesterday, one single day, 85 players jumped into the portal in college football. I mean, I have never seen anything quite like it because it's quarterbacks and very big name quarterbacks that are saying, you know what? I want to take a shot somewhere else. I got to get out of where I am. It's amazing to me. I don't know what you think about it. I know what I think. I don't like it, especially when these guys are maybe a junior or a senior and they're just leaving because they just think that there's somewhere else there's a greener pasture. It's just sad the way college football has turned into the NFL. I mean, we've got NIL money. There's players out there making $2, $3, $4 million. LeBron's son is one of them making a lot of money in basketball. But what do you think, John? Is this portal a good thing? I mean, I'll say this. If you're early in your career and you feel like you made a mistake, that's one thing. If you're leaving because you just don't like your coach, I don't know about that. So what you tell me, how do you feel about this whole thing with the portal? Because it's just amazing to me, John, how many kids jumped into it, and more are happening today. I was watching it. It's like a ticker tape, just keeps on going.
Yeah. And by the way, the Buffaloes, the Colorado Buffalo, did just lose their tight end, Pete, who's the son of a famous Colorado Buffalo football legend, Christian Fauria. But nonetheless, do I like it? I'm one of those guys who really likes the players and thinks that the coaches making $10 million should just shut up. They've got to keep these players interested, not just stack them. Like, there's a couple coaches maybe in Alabama, Pete, that have done that for years. Just stack up the best guys they've got, and then the poor kids don't play until they're a senior, if then. So I'm happy that they can move around. And like I say, the coaches are being well compensated. If they've got to be nice to a couple of the players that are on the cusp rather than lose them, well, that's I like that puts sort of the proverbial gun to the coach's head.
Yeah, I hear you. It's interesting. It's going to be great. We're going to know a lot more by the end of this week, John. When we get into the weekend, we see some of those games. And like you said, I can't wait for Washington, Oregon. It's a rematch. It wasn't Washington. Oregon lost it. They did all those 4th and 1s that they went for it, and 4th and 3, and they went for it and they didn't make it and everything. It'll be an interesting game. And I think that coach will do the same thing. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I like his aggressiveness. He said what he was going to do. He was a man of his word. It just didn't work out. Now, they might not even need it if Bo Nix plays like he's been playing.
Yeah. Well, he's still my pick, Pete. If I was picking number one right now of quarterbacks, I would take him over Penix or Daniels. I would take him because the kid's got a gun and he fires it quick, which is vital in pro football. You can't do a 7-step drop unless you've just got a ton of wheels that you can bounce outside the pocket and run. And Bo Nix gets rid of that ball quick. He makes a decision, goes with it. We're going to make a decision.
Real quick, John, I'll just say this real quick. Your Bears have the first pick, and right now you got Justin Fields. So it becomes an interesting situation, huh?
I trade him, Pete. I would trade him and get Bo Nix. I'm not going to have Bo Nix back up Justin Fields. That'd be stupid. But let us know what you think, folks. At Pete Najarian on Twitter, at Jon Najarian on Twitter, and 1 p.m. tomorrow, Eastern Time. We'll be back.